While a 19-point loss does not sound that much worse than a 14-point loss prediction, watching the game, it's completely different. I was predicting that things would be close, maybe around halftime, and then Texas would just pull away eventually in the second half, probably the fourth quarter. But this game, it was done by halftime. Ewers and the Texas offense had no problem with Michigan's defensive front or their secondary. They basically had their game plan down perfectly because whenever Mason and Graham were on the field at the same time, they just got rid of the ball as quickly as possible. And then whenever they rotated and only one of them was in the game, they would run the ball with ease. And they took care of the Michigan Wolverines a lot easier than they should have. Someone for the Michigan Wolverines needs to step up both on offense and on defense. Last year, the offense had J.J. McCarthy, they had Blake Corum, they had Roman Wilson. Who's it going to be this year? Thought Colston Loveland would be that target. Yes, he is pretty reliable, but then also there were several blunders. There was a big drop pass in the first game. There was the fumble in this game. Will he be able to rebound from that and be more consistent and more reliable? On the defense, last year it was Mike Sanderstill. Now, of course, I know that Mikey Sanderstill was one of the best defensive players that Michigan is going to see for quite some time, but still, someone needs to step up for that leadership and for that dependability on the defense as well. Who's it going to be? I will say that the final drive, it was nice to see Warren not only complete passes, but also extend plays to be able to keep the drive moving. And also love Samaj Morgan and what he was able to do because he definitely stepped up. Unfortunately, it was far too little, far too late. I'm going to jump into a little conversation that I've brought up for the past several seasons, and that is about Michigan and when they allow teams to score more than 30 points. That is the Achilles heel for Michigan. I said that they live and die by the run game. Honestly, they live and die by their defense because whenever a team scores more than 30 points, the Wolverines lose. When Michigan lost to TCU, that team scored 51 points. And then before that, when they lost to Georgia, Georgia scored 34. And then their regular season loss to MSU, MSU scored 37. When was the last time that Michigan beat a team even though they scored more than 30 points? There were a couple overtime games, but that's outside of regulation, so I'm not going to really count those. When you go to a game that was won during regulation, you have to go back to when Michigan played Indiana in 2013. That was that crazy shootout game with a final score of 63-47. That was over 10 years ago. 10 years ago for Michigan to be able to beat another team if they scored 30 points. Michigan is not an offensive scoring machine. The only time they are able to score a lot of offensive points is when they are beating up on smaller teams. They cannot hang with offensive juggernauts if the defense cannot step up and make stops. So if the defense does not rebound from this performance, then it is going to be a difficult year. Now, to go back to that 2021 regular season loss to Michigan State, I will say this. The Michigan team used that as a springboard to continue their season and be able to finish out the regular season undefeated. So the question is, how is this year's Michigan team going to use this loss to Texas? Granted, Texas is by far one of the best teams in the country, but still, that is not an excuse for how terrible their performance was. One last thing to talk about Texas before moving on to the next game is this concept that I've had for a while, and actually I see I'm not the only one who has this thought and this concern in their mind, and that's about the changes from the team from one year to the next. I don't know and I don't understand why Michigan, they're at the level that they are, has this significant of a drop after last season. I do know that they lost big players, especially at quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. That's hard to replace. But this is such a huge drop. When you look at other programs like Alabama, Georgia, OSU, and then even years prior, Clemson, Oklahoma, these were teams that were consistently good year in and year out after losing key players, including quarterbacks. and they were still in the top 10 consistently and going into the 4-team playoff. I know that Michigan has had an excellent 3 years, but for them keeping the players that they did, like they have key players that they kept on the defense. They have several really good players on offense, but this looks like such a huge drop. Again, it is against what is guaranteed to be one of the best teams in the country, but still to be able to have that performance at home, there's nothing wrong with being concerned about that. And we know that the team is concerned about it as well. So we have to see how they react to it and how they move forward from it. Michigan will continue with playing home games this coming weekend against Arkansas State. So it is going to be the 17th ranked Michigan Wolverines, who are a 24-point favorite against Arkansas State with the over-under of 45.5. The game is going to be another noon game, but this time it will be kicking off on the Big Ten Network. Arkansas State is a 2-0 team coming to Ann Arbor. Now, they have only won their first 2 games by a combined total of 7 points. So the Michigan Wolverines need to win this game and win it convincingly. They need to rebound and regroup, and this is their opportunity to grow because the following week, while they have another home game, they will be hosting USC, who seems to have had no problem keeping up their momentum after losing their Heisman quarterback, Caleb Williams, to the NFL. You could say Arkansas State is relatively balanced. They have 4 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns. However, they do pass the ball a lot more with 572 passing yards and 281 rushing yards. Now, comparing these two teams directly, offense production for total offensive yards gained, Michigan is ranked 120th, and Arkansas State is ranked 52. Now, defensively, that does flip a little bit because Michigan is ranked 70th, while Arkansas State is then ranked at 100. Arkansas State is being led by sophomore quarterback Jalen Rayner, who is only completing 57% of his passes, but he is a dual threat quarterback. He is one of their leading rushers with 122 yards and 2 touchdowns after 34 attempts, while Zach Wallace is a senior running back with 199 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on 31 attempts. Basically, for receiving, there's only one name to know, and that's Corey Rucker, and he has 239 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the defense is led by senior safety Justin Parks and a pair of defensive ends in Jaden Jones and Brian Whitehead. So where are things for the Michigan Wolverines and how do they move forward? First of all, I want to say it again, just please get rid of the 2 quarterback system. It did not work. They just shut down Orgy each time. I mean, maybe if it's like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, or like in the 5-yard line by the goal line, maybe put him in there, but don't consistently do it. It's not looking like it's working. Make a decision between Warren or Orgy, and it seems like they've made their decision with Warren. If Warren can play the way that he did on that last drive, then there is hope for this offense. I guess I should say more hope. But the receivers also do need to help him out because the fumbles and drop passes is not going to get it done and keep this offense moving forward, because this offense does need to move so that the defense can rest and do their job well. That's what was so effective last year, that while maybe not a ton of points were scored all the time, the Michigan offense was able to stay on the field and kill time so that the defense could rest and be effective against the other team's offense. The offense, though, the huge question mark, honestly, is the offensive line. I don't know how you have your 21, 22, and 23 season and have what looks like such a significant drop-off for this current season. So there definitely needs to be improvement there for the passing game, but especially for the rushing game. There's just so much work that has to be done for this team, unless their name is Dominic Zvada, because that is the only person that is doing their job amazingly. This is a team that could maybe make it through the rest of the regular season with just 1 or 2 more losses, or they could see 4 or 5 losses. It's really up to them and their work ethic and how they rebound from this current situation. For this upcoming game, I'm predicting Michigan 26, Arkansas State 14. Yes, that's 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals. I would love for it to be something more like 34-10. But honestly, with the huge question marks surrounding this team, especially the offense, I don't know if I feel comfortable predicting that at this time. For Michigan football, we are currently back to the show me, don't tell me stage. Don't tell me about the work. Don't tell me about the tough trials you're going through. Don't tell me about what's going to be done. Show me on the field and show me with the final results. The proof is in the results. So we need to not see what work is being done, but what the results on the field are and the productivity from it. Just hold on, Michigan fans. It could be a long season, but we've been through worse. And honestly, this is our team. I would say just continue to keep cheering for them and hope for the best. And as with everything else, only time will tell. But until next time, go blue.